Well, I've given it a bit of time since yesterday's game, and to be honest with you, I've just about brought together all my thoughts. Well, I wanted to come out last night, but I was busy, and I've had a hectic Sunday. It's now 20 past 7 in the evening, just gone, and I'm finally ready to give me thoughts on yesterday's game. Uh, Yesterday's game to me just highlighted how far off Rovers are, competing at the right end of the table. I know we're rock bottom at the moment, but 2 games you can't judge anything after 2 league games. Sorry, 3 league games. Here's me getting sidetracked with it. But after 3 games, you can't judge. Give it another 3 or 4 or 5 games, and then we can see where we are. But let's get into that a little bit later on. Let's talk about the game really. So Rovers in itself, or in themselves, they played okay in the first half. They didn't play terribly. They got the ball down. They were moving the ball forward. Again, it didn't really create much in terms of attacking chances, but they gave it a good go. They didn't look lost out there in the first half, let's say. But as soon as Doncaster got their first goal, heads dropped and that was it. It was a well taken goal, but defending from set pieces, shambolic, absolutely shambolic. And then the second goal, was it a foul on the Rovers player? Probably. You've seen them given, you've seen them haven't. But when the ball was then nodded back from the Donny player we were alleged to put the Rovers, I think it was Leahy, on the floor, Kilgore then absolutely batters into another Doncaster player in the box. So I think had Doncaster not scored, I think they probably could have gotten a penalty from that. It would have been a soft one, but I after about 10 minutes, I had a feeling who the referee was. I'm 99% confident it was Trevor Kettle. He was a referee who doesn't give the game much flow. I don't think he was a poor referee. He just gave every decision, I think. Um, yeah, and Lee, he took his goal really well. It was the first chance Rovers had, and he took it fantastically. And yeah, Donny will look at that, as poor defending. The keeper shouldn't have maybe so far off his line, but fantastic goal from Leahy, and you can't take that away from him. And as the second half came in, as soon as Doncaster got the third goal, Rovers' heads just, well, I said their heads dropped after the first one. They might as well have just taken their heads off at this point because they just ran out of ideas. And like I said, that stems from the players themselves. And like I said, I'm not going to criticise the players to the end of time. They do deserve some criticism, as does the manager. I think everyone deserves a fair bit of criticism there. But to me, this I'm not going to come around and say that Garner is using the Rover squad like you would on Football Manager. That's such a bad thing to say, I know. But the players that he signed, the majority of the players have not played more than a season or two of professional football. It's either been under 23s or the odd loan spell here or there. So even if you look at Cian Harris, who's never really played 30 plus games a season, even this is Kilgore's second season, as a first teamer at Rovers. You look in the midfield, Josh Grant, only really one season last year at Plymouth, and that was in the division below. And you look going forward, James Daly, who's just come out of the Palace under 23 team. So that's just to name a few. Even McCormick, who we signed the other day, he's just mainly just been out on loan here or there. And the sad thing is, when you're playing a team which is mainly players that have done well in the lower divisions, like Dutonda, I think he was at Barnet for three seasons, I think he did, so he done well at Barnet, but he's playing at a lower level, same with Oyunga. When these players, they're young, they've not had that experience of, getting battered, if you like. It's a hard way of learning that. They've got to learn that at some stage, of course, but once the whole team is in that frame of mind, then you've got to look to the manager. And go, look, experience doesn't mean age. I've said this before. Look at Tom Lockyer. The guy's 20. I think he's still 25. I think he's 26 this year. I think he's got 300 appearances in his career. I know he's been a bench player for Luton since he's gone there, which I'm quite surprised with. But Luton have done quite well. But Lockyer has played 40 games a season since he was 18 years old. So he's got that experience under his belt. Every player is going to need to get it, sure. But when you look at the Rovers team and every single player is in that category, you don't then have that experienced head to turn to. Even Max Amer, who, like I said, he's an experienced guy, Amer aside, but he's not looked captain material since the season started. And he was my pick to be captain as well. But when you look at players like Rodman, who's still out with an ear infection, and I think it's affected other things as well. I can relate to that. I used to have horrific ear infections when I was little. It is absolutely horrible. So I can sympathise with Rodman there. And as an attacking force, oddly enough, I think the only real player that came out with any credit was Hanlon. He worked his socks off. I think he and a younger need to start together. Because I didn't know what shape Rovers were trying to play yesterday. I have no idea. Daly, sorry, looked completely lost out on the left. McCormick was missing. This is his first game, we can't criticise him, but he wasn't really in the game much. Westbrook, I've not really seen a lot of him in the first 3 games. He's not really looked the way I think we were told, but then that could be down to the players around him. Who knows? Mitchell Lawson, to me, hasn't done enough to start. Again, he's a young lad. This is the problem. I can sit here and say the players haven't been good enough, but deep down, you can't really criticise them because they're all young. Quite a few of them are younger than me. So how can I can't sit here and say that, a player X and Y isn't good enough, but they can still develop. But as I've said before, when you've got 7 or 8 players that are all in that category, they're all learning together. And like I said, the more this goes on, losing heavily, like I said, we didn't lose heavily to Ipswich, but the way we lost, it's the same thing yesterday. The way we lost to Doncaster was horrendous. So everyone deserves a bit of blame. I'm going to get onto the manager here because his post-match interview was quite telling, I think. When 80% of it, you just sit there criticising the referees when you need to take some responsibility yourself. If you spend your whole match day interview, a post-match interview, slating the referee, then what does that say for yourself? You know what I'm trying to say? And I want Garner to succeed. Like I said, to a man, he's brilliant. As a manager, he's been shit so far. And that's not for me to say he can't turn it around, but my God, he's got to do it soon enough. He really has got to start turning this around soon. But I will say this, though. 1 point from 3 is about what I expected. I thought if we can take a point from one of these and then build from there. Like I said, the manner we've lost isn't great, but it's something, that's my phone going now, but it's something we can build on. Let's face it, we can't get any worse, can we? We're bottom of the league, you can't get any worse. So, I say Garner's got to accept some more responsibility. And I also want to address the situation at right back. Hare didn't feature yesterday due to lack of fitness. And this is not me having a go at Mark Little, because he did a good interview last weekend. But it's all well and good saying that you're training well, but it's on the pitch that counts. And Little's injured again. You've seen I think he was seeing a specialist or something. I think it was his hamstring or something going to be looked at. But we've got 2 right backs at the moment who are both croc. They're both injured or not fit. So I'd rather, I know it's about to play the young players again, but if you're going to do the philosophy of bringing in a young player, just stick the under 23s right back in there. Because that's that's what we've done with Zane Walker coming on, who has an incredible Barnet, by the way. If you're desperate, chuck the academy players in there. Don't put Kilgore there in a position where he's clearly not comfortable at. Kilgore's had a poor start to the season, but then again, who's had a good one? I feel sorry for Jacola because the goals he's let in have made him look poor when it's not really on him. I mean, you could kind of put down to last weekend, it was mainly Amer's fault, but there was no real communication between the two. It is frustrating. But again, for everything I say, everything that I come across in a negative way, which I'm trying not to. I'm just being honest with what I saw yesterday. you can see what Rovers are trying to do. It's so frustrating because you kind of think, yeah, it's poor and we're getting beaten like there's no tomorrow, but you do see little flashes in there. It's just a case of how long do Rovers let this go? Because we've got the next two games. You've got to get 4 points in the next two games, or I think Garner will go. I don't, or to the fans anyway. The fans are already heavily on his back, and I'm so torn with it. You know, this season's been like no other as his last season. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't see this season being completed. But that's a story for another time. And the last point I want to make on Garner is essentially that, like, I'm not going to criticize him like some people have. I mean, deserves criticism, don't get me wrong. But I will say his substitutions have got to happen sooner. If it's not working, 5-10 minutes into the second half, make a change. I think it was after the hour mark where we made the changes. You got to change it sooner. And he's very stubborn on the three at the back formation, and it just isn't working. And he didn't really go with the three at the back on the weekend. This is what I mean. We were looking at the game on Saturday, and the shape of the team just looked all over the place. I can understand what he's trying to do, trying to get the front three to rotate with each other, but we just looked lost as opposed to what shape we were looking to do. From the looks of it, more of a 4-3-3, but I could be completely wrong with what sort of formation we were doing there. So that will bring it to the end for this video. I think it's been a bit of a longer